at the age of 60, 60% of the amount will come tax free. 40% of the amount will get invested into an annuity scheme, which is going to give you a regular pension.
Hi everyone, I'm Avni Raja and you're watching Invest Smart, a show where we talk about all things related to your money, your savings, and your investments. Retirement planning is perhaps one of the most important financial goals, and of course, the earlier you start, the better. While there are various ways to plan for your retirement, on today's show, we are going to talk about the National Pension Scheme or the NPS. While they can be an excellent addition to your retirement portfolio, people are still unsure about whether they should opt for it. So, today we are going to try and break it down for you and help you decide whether it is a good fit for your portfolio. Joining me on the show is Mrin Agarwal, founder FinSafe India. Mrin, thank you so much for joining us on Invest Smart. Before we get to the NPS, I want your quick word on retirement planning itself, because this is something that's often given a low priority, but it should be just the opposite, isn't it? The power of compounding is such that even 5 years can make a huge difference. But any thumb rules or any advice that you would give right now?
Hello, Avni, and thank you for having me on the show. Yes, certainly, retirement planning is something that you need to start looking at as early as possible. A lot of people start looking at this only in their 40s and 50s, and by that time, the amount that they need to invest is very, very large. So, it's really important to start looking at retirement planning as early as possible, because every 5 years that you delay the investment, the amount that you have to invest is then going to be double. So if not for any other reason, just for this simple reason, you need to start early.
Okay. So, as far as the NPS is concerned, let's start by understanding how this product actually works.
It is a retirement planning scheme. And so the first thing to remember is that it is locked in till the age of 60 years and you invest every year. Now, when the investor invests, they have a choice of choosing between the various investment options, for example, equity or debt, right? So in debt, they have corporate bonds and they have government bonds as well, and they have to decide how much allocation they want to do to equity or to bonds. Now, if the investor is not able to decide that, you have the option for going for the active choice. I'm sorry, you have the option to go for the auto choice, where the funds are allocated in a predetermined manner between stocks and bonds based on the age of the investor. And there is a regular tapering of equity that happens, especially after the age of 50. So, this is the way it really works. Now, it is a market link scheme, which means that it does not give you a fixed return. And at the age of 60, 60% of the amount will come tax free. 40% of the amount will get invested into an annuity scheme, which is going to give you a regular pension.
Right. And in terms of where the NPS invests, of course, one part is equity, but there's a cap of the maximum you can invest, even if you're an aggressive investor and you choose the active choice, is 75%. But if you can take us through the other parts as well, where it invests in.
Yeah, so of course, you can invest in corporate bonds or you can invest in government bonds, and you can choose the allocation that you want. And earlier on, there was this tapering, but now the tapering has been removed. So, to that extent, there is a lot of flexibility. As such, I would recommend to go for the active equity option, because when you look at the auto choice, the allocation to equity at the age of 50, I think, comes down to about 35%, if I'm not mistaken. And, it keeps going down further and further, right? And as we all know, with compounding, what happens is that the maximum compounding happens towards the later years, right? So that's not a time when you actually want to reduce equity allocation in the portfolio if you still have, let's say, 10 years to go for the age of 60. So, what I would say is that look at the active equity option if you have more than 10 years to go for retirement.
Okay. Now, Rin, if you can also take us through the entire annuity part of it, because there have been some changes that have recently also been announced where the regulator has said that NPS subscribers will be able to get a wider range of annuity options. If you can take us through how this works.
Yeah, so as I mentioned that at the age of 60, 40% needs to be invested into an annuity scheme. Now, there are six different types of schemes available. The difference is going to be in the payout, and the payout is going to be different based upon what you've chosen. So you have the option to receive the pension during your lifetime, and then you could option two could be to say that I wanted to go to my spouse. Option three is that it will also go to my children, right? There's also an option on the return of the amount and stuff like that. So there are five, six different options that are given that you can choose from. Of course, based on the option you choose, the one, for example, where only you are getting during your lifetime, the annuity amount is going to be out there. Now, the change that has come recently is that they are proposing, the PRDA is proposing that those people who are committing more than 10 lakhs to annuity have the ability to choose annuity from different providers, right? It's not like you have to put the entire amount with one provider. You can look at splitting the amount in lots of 5 lakhs in different providers.
Okay, right. How does the NPS stack up against other, pension or retirement products that are available in the market today?
Well, I think it stacks up really well because when you look at what most investors would compare it against, would be against the deferred annuity plans or the immediate annuity plans, or these are typically pension schemes from insurance companies. Now, the problem with these schemes is that um, the costs associated are very high, and hence what happens is that you are not able to build sort of corpus that you could actually do with the NPS, because in NPS the cost is only 0.05%, whereas these come with much higher cost. Also, almost all of these schemes would have a mortality cost also associated. So what happens is that for every 100 rupees that you're actually putting in, the amount that it's growing to is going to be much lesser in the deferred annuity or the immediate annuity plan from the insurance companies, right? The other option is, of course, equity mutual funds, and you could invest in equity mutual funds. But I think the bigger issue that happens is that people find it very difficult to remain disciplined and invested.
Yes, absolutely. But there is still a lack of awareness about the NPS itself. The fact is that there are several benefits, like some of them you've pointed out, that come attached with the NPS. And another important benefit, of course, is the tax part of it, because even in the new tax regime, you do get the tax benefit for the NPS.
Yes, and that's kind of sad, that people are really not signing up for it. I think there's, I see that there's a lot of effort in the salaried segment, and that's because most companies want to provide this as a retirement benefit to their employee. But when you look at the non-salaried segment, I think the awareness levels are really low. I think a lot more needs to be done by the stakeholders to promote this product among the non-salaried, because today in salaried segment people are aware of it. They do have their concerns, right? So the biggest concern that most people have is that for such a long term period, can we actually lock in money into a market linked product? Now, what they don't realize is that they have been doing this for years and years in the insurance products, right? I mean, most people have insurance products which they bought for 20, 30 years, where they expected some return to happen, and they didn't have those concerns there. So I don't know, but this is something that I hear a lot, saying that, oh, can I lock in my money for 20, 30 years without really knowing what returns I'm going to be getting? So I think that's one of the deterrents that is actually stopping people from investing, despite there being a nudge in form of the tax benefits available.
Right, Mrin. And to just to add to that, the fact is you can also switch if you're not comfortable with having too much of exposure to equity. You can reduce that exposure. So that is the other way to, of course, address that concern about being invested in equity for such a long period of time.
Yes, you can switch 4 times a year. So I mean, the product does come with a lot of flexibility. I think the only flexibility that's not there is the fact that that 40% has to be annuitized. Other than that, I think the product is pretty flexible.
Absolutely, Imran. Thank you so much for joining us and breaking that down for us. For our viewers, I hope that has explained a little bit about how the NPS works and how it can actually fit into your portfolio as part of your retirement planning. Remember, the earlier you start your retirement planning, the better it is. Thank you so much for watching.